Nope. All right, I think we are streaming. So, hello everyone, and welcome to Adventure on So Many Levels. We're going to play some Dungeons and Dragons.
Deliberations and Dianetics. Wait, what?
Dragons.
I'm Christiana Ellis, and I am the Dungeon Master. Our players tonight: Paul Fisher as Garland, aka Zinhorn;
Good evening.
Jenny Meltzer as Nightshade, aka Zaleen.
Zanely.
Zinleen. I put the two Z names next to each other.
It's our powers combined.
Oh no.
Mark Kilfoyle as Indigo, aka Vertigo, aka Nedry.
Does one really wake up when one leaves dream? Or is it always dreaming now?
And Starla Hutchton as Primrose, aka Lynn.
Hello, friends.
All right, so when last we left our heroes, they had defeated the Lady Despair in the moon-shadowed sea. They had freed the slumbering last Titan from its eternal despair, sending it off into wherever departed Titans go, and teleported away, intending to find themselves once again in the court of the Archfey within the Feywild. However, things didn't exactly go as planned. Each of the party members experienced an upsetting nightmare that was only revealed as such when Garland, aka Zinhorn, finally was able to snap himself out and then wake the others. But it seems as though you had actually all teleported to the realm of dream. And while there, you were attacked by a cloud of nightmare energy that formed itself into the shape of a dragon, and things looked dire until you were all pulled out and to safety, waking up back in the court of the Archfey in the Feywild by one of the Archfey herself, who goes by the Princess of Dream. So, I think, although we finished last time with all of you kind of coming awake there on the floor where she had pulled you out, you were still pretty the worse for wear. Not feeling good. You had felt somewhat recovered in the realm of dream, but somehow now that you are no longer in the realm of dream, all of your injuries from the moon-shadowed sea seem to be back, plus interest from the Nightmare Dragon. So what we actually are going to open on now is a lovely open-air infirmary of sorts here in the Feywild. You have all been given lovely soft beds. You've been tended by the best healers that the Archfey Court has to offer. And you've all been able to achieve a long rest, and you needed it. I think each of you, though even though some of you do not sleep in the traditional way, you nonetheless all found that you needed significant rest and have been allowed to get it. But you're all nearby each other, so as you kind of come awake, feeling much better, you may do what you like. So, pocket protectors, what is that?
Well, we should probably figure out when we're expected to present this story, because I didn't have the impression that the Fey Court was like always there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like they meet there sometimes.
Mm-hmm. You had certainly been told when you presented to them before. you were given the list of Archfey currently in residence, and that did not include a full complement. Like there were more chairs than Archfey that were there at that time. But yeah, you don't really know.
So, who would we? Could we just be presenting to any of the Archfey, or was it like the Archfey in general that we owe the favor to, or is it that like it's that specific group of them from before?
These are all good questions.
Couldn't we just
Well,
write it
maybe we
down
should
and
find
leave
out.
it to somebody? Mail it or something? There are
Is there-
important things to be done.
Yeah, but I don't think we would have survived that if not for their help. So I think we need to, complete our end of the bargain, which is the story.
It would be good handwriting.
I wonder if this place has a concierge like the place that we stayed.
You don't see anyone at the moment, but you certainly have, fuzzy, sleepy memories of being tended to by Eladrin healers.
Isn't this more like a hospital? Do hospitals have concierges?
It's the Fae. I mean that seems like it would make sense.
Paradise says, well, I dare say that in addition to being expected to tell this story, we also, I believe, need to get our proper names back. The original pact we made from them, if you recall, meant that we loaned them our names in a fashion in order to receive our new identities. I suppose if we want our original names back, we have to complete the transaction.
Well, we need to complete it regardless. But the way I recall it is we get our names back by reclaiming them. So at any point I can stand up and say, I am Zinhorn Windborn.
Well, that wasn't quite it. You're right that they said we could end it at any time, but it was by calling their names.
Oh, maybe by calling their names, we summon them to tell them the story?
Curity, I think, is there with you, and she's she just kind of looks around at you and says, yeah, this all makes a bit more sense. The Lady Despair usually relies on her charms to defeat everyone, but you all seemed pretty immune to that.
We left ourselves behind in a way.
And found other versions of ourselves.
Became other versions.
You guys are funny.
Yeah, well, we were playing by a different set of rules there for a while.
Yeah, they've got a whole other system down there in the Moonshadowed Sea.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
doesn't exist anymore, does it? I thought it disappeared.
I mean, I'm used to being different people all the time, so I think it's odd to consider that that's not how it is for everyone.
I didn't think you became other people so much as other versions of yourself. In fact, you
Well-
didn't really want to be anybody specific.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying about back there. Like, it was still me, just a different version of me. So, look at it this way. It doesn't the outside and the inside aren't necessarily tied together. It's like we all have multiple versions of ourselves within ourselves. It's just you are filtering yourself differently. If that makes
Maybe
sense.
that's how you experience it, but I've only ever been one person. I just change.
Mm,
We're saying the same thing. Everybody changes.
But I don't change and change back like you do. It's
Mm,
always
It's not
towards
that
something
simple.
else.
It's not that simple.
I haven't studied you and your type before, so I could be wrong.
every experience that she has shapes who she is underneath all of the glamour, the ability to change her face and her body. So, just like you, she evolves every time she takes on someone else's identity.
I don't do that. I don't take on other
No,
people's
not other
identities,
people.
only
No,
my
no,
own.
you know. I don't want to confuse you,
Except for that one
Vertigo,
time.
because you're a little confused anyway.
Yeah.
Everything feels so clear, but I can't explain it. It's like all the words are there, but they're all at once.
Like
It's like
word soup.
every answer that I've ever wanted is right within my grasp, but I can't pick which question I want to ask next.
Hmm.
All of a
That's an
sudden,
interesting conundrum for you.
Aster from like over in the corner just goes, "Oh, whoa!" And as you look over, he's looking. He has his hand has been replaced. He now has his lost hand again, except that although he can seem to move it just fine, it seems to have been like it has almost kind of like a waxy sort of sheen to it, and the nails are black like with painted nails. And he's like moving it, and he's just kind of looking at it. It's like, whoa. I mean, I didn't really have enough time to get used to not having a hand, so I kind of didn't notice it first. But wow. And he's just kind of looking it over and sort of feeling it.
I hope it's not alone.
Oh, I have a story about that.
A lone hand?
All by itself.
Yeah, a hand
mean,
that's not alone.
That isn't a thing.
Well, my hand's not alone anymore, right?
Nope.
Nope.
Well, that's good. You're whole. And you're more. You did you did things I'd never expected.
I yeah that this storm girdle thing y'all gave me is kind of my first chance really trying it on for size, and that thing was really scary, but I felt strong. I mean, I still feel strong. I never like I was always kind of the quick one and not the strong one, but like check this out. And he gets out of bed, and just from one end of the bed he just like lifts the bed. And it's not like a crazy bed, but it's like he's obviously strong.
Cool.
That's good.
Yeah.
More likely to survive now.
Yeah. You're strong and quick.
You will need that strength in the days ahead. I even say it in that voice too, so it's all like ominous.
Do you have thaumaturgy?
Yes.
He looks down at his hand. He says, "Whoa! It even does goosebumps."
Well, you know, they just saved me the work of having to make you a new one anyway. So,
Although, keep an eye on it. I mean, I'm not saying anything could possibly go wrong, but things can possibly go wrong.
there was a story about an evil hand. that I remember.
Hmm.
Yeah, it kind of got lost in a whole lot of vampire lore. Um, but you know, the guy had the evil hand,
Well,
and yeah, I don't
As
think he
long as
created
it's
this
not
evil.
idle, you should be okay.
well, one of the heroes of legend had a borrowed arm for a while, didn't he?
I
That's what
thought
I'm
we'd es-
saying, and it
Yeah.
wasn't alone.
I thought we'd escaped that stories. So after we tell the story, which I think really that's more of Prim's thing than mine, but we have what we needed. We can do the spell. Well, there's more to it than that, but the hardest part, at least I think it was the hardest part, is done.
Curity. So here's this. Have you told Curity about that whole
No.
bit? Yeah. So she's kind of like, well, I trust that if you felt like I needed to know what you're talking about, you would tell me.
I think you'll probably hear it eventually, but let's skip that part for now, maybe.
All right. I think at this point, Valor sort of creeps around a pillar and just says, "Are you all awake now? The healers made me leave because I could not speak quietly."
I think
Um,
we're better.
I'd look around and check and make sure everyone's awake, that we're not
Um,
missing anyone.
Yeah. No,
I'm gonna use
there aren't any
thaumaturgy.
other patients here.
I'm gonna use thaumaturgy to answer Valor and be like, "Yes, we're all awake."
Splendid.
It's lovely to see you.
Oh, oh, oh.
He,
Do I
he
have the
he
spell
gives a deep
silence?
bow, which really just highlights that there's like the armor is hollow.
Yeah, that's also something that'll need to be resolved.
One
What?
thing at a time.
Curity uh, looks at the rest of you and says, while some of you are still out, I asked the healers to take a look at me. Uh, they said that the curse is gone, but that the changes that it made are not undone. And so that should mean, I guess, that I am no longer forced to stay in the Feywild, but that I am also not going to turn back to normal.
Not yet.
Well, that's kind of, and she looks at Valor and says, I think it's kind of complicated now. I'm not sure that if I could press a button and go back to normal, but then Valor would disappear and whatever Yobert has of mine would disappear. Valor has meant a lot to me.
I don't see why the three of you couldn't get along.
Well,
I have a theory. You didn't get Valor until after you got cursed, right?
they said that Valor is the half, my half of Yobert's heart.
Yeah,
And they said that
that's what I thought.
he probably has half of my heart, and it probably manifests also as some kind of a spiritual companion.
It's not, it's not
Brendan?
Brennan, is it?
Sunya,
Brennan's a
maybe.
better cook.
Dunya.
Or wait a sec. What was
When
the?
when you say Sunya, she kind of like her eyes widen a little bit and says, "That was one of his nicknames for me."
Oh,
That's what he calls the castle.
That is the spirit
The
of the
spirit
castle
of the
that
castle.
makes it fly.
Mm-hmm.
She looks over at Valor and says, "You hear that? He got a whole flying castle." And Valor kind of just doubles over with a big belly laugh.
I guess your heart was bigger. It
It
buoyed
is.
him into the skies.
Not that there's anything wrong with Valor, but
Yeah, I mean, he
I've
protected you.
Well,
I've
I would say that I had what I needed. Yober's half of a heart found a way to give me what I needed. And I can only hope that mine did the same for him. I never really I didn't thank you because it feels like if I do, it's not enough, and I can't make myself show it the way that I should. But I want you all to know that what you have done is going to make lots of people's lives better than they were. And you protected many people in the future from further mischief that the Lady Despair would have wrought. And although I am not returned to normal, I find, I think in some ways it's not that I have difficulty with my affect that made me hesitate to say thank you. It's that I think I'm afraid to see him again after all this time. I'm afraid what he'll think of me now.
So Lynn or Primrose is just like silently sobbing at this point, and when there's a break in the all of that you were just
I think
saying, she just
there's a moment where she kind of looks up and just like literally like the TV show cut to we've had a long held shot on her doing that monologue, and then just pans over to Lynn just sobbing, and I think she kind of leans over and puts a hand on your knee and says, "It's okay."
and I promptly wrap her in the hugest hug.
You know that Yobert forbid us from uh, undoing the curse because, or even interfering in it because he was horribly afraid, deathly afraid that he would hurt you. He cares for you very deeply. And I know you are having continued problems showing emotions, but um, maybe that will get better once the two of you are together again.
Maybe. I guess I just realized once the curse was lifted that I don't think I ever thought it would be. And now the idea of it just feels like, what do you say to someone after something like this?
I was just starting with hello, but that's as far as I can get.
You figure it out as you go. Same as anybody else, really. But if Sunya is your other half, I think it'll be okay. She's pretty awesome.
And Valor kind of leans and puts one arm around her shoulders and says, "And I'll be there too, after all." I think that we'll figure it out together. We've done well with that, you and I on our own. Just think what a mighty team we'll be, reunited with our respective better halves.
And Brennan.
He's a very good cook.
Yeah. And he takes really good care of Yobert. And Sunya.
Yeah, Curity nods and just says, "Yeah, Brennan's a good one."
What was the name of the woman who kind of brought us all together?
Sorashana.
Sorashana, thank you.
Sorashana.
It started with an S.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sort of. I mean, in body, yes. But I think it wasn't exactly Sorashana who did it, but Kosh.
Curity kind of just blinks and just says, You have not told me any of this. I don't know who those people are."
Well, I think we'll have time to catch you up later. But maybe we should get out of here and figure out our whole presentation. This is going to be such a fun production because, it's the Fae, so we got to go big, you guys.
Do we have to?
We're
Maybe.
counting on you to lead us and pull us through.
Could we not
this
just stick to
arduous
the
task
facts?
for
Sets
which
and
we have
lights
no
and sound
skill.
effects. It'll be
A few
fabulous.
static illusions and a little description, maybe? Attended appendices?
It's funny. I didn't want to presume, but that said, having the party members tell their own story in canon is kind of a so many levels tradition at this point.
Oh God.
Last time we did a recap, I think it ended up. I feel like I talked for like 2 hours straight. I don't have an outline this time.
That's okay. We'll wing it, and it'll be amazing. And I'll use thaumaturgy when needed.
Then we'll make sure to use a flashback from time to time about how we set the whole thing up.
Right?
Well, what I'll offer too is that when the time comes, we don't necessarily have to talk through every moment unless you want to. Like, we don't have to do it in real time. What we could potentially do is just have flashes of it, like a montage, for example.
I think that that's great, and that we should do a musical version of it where we come out like we're on Broadway, all singing about how we became the scare stoppers, and
And we make Starless sing every part.
Well, how well do you remember the Moon Shadowed Sea song that I wrote for you?
Moon shadowed sea. Moon shadowed sea.
that'll be the ending piece. Like that's the final number.
Well, and that song is somewhat of a collector's item now, because Moon Shadowed
Doesn't
Sea
exist.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I
That-
mean,
that'll be
the
purely
shallow
valuable.
fae who lived there, there were many sea fae who kind of already live in the water who, hung out there because there were so many other people there. But
Is that the new last stanza? Ceases to be, ceases to be.
I'm sure the bard could write one. A reprise.
Maybe we could find Favreau.
Uh, all of a sudden, he steps out from a column and says, "No need, I'm here."
I knew it.
Were you there the whole time?
I was here when you called.
That's what I thought. I had a feeling.
That is my duty, after all, here in the Fey Court, is to be present when required and absent when not.
Do you think you could help us figure out what we need to do to present our story?
Of course.
I'm gonna need some supplies.
Well, it just so happens that here we have a presentation stage and a great many people who are adept at assisting with set design and costumes and special effects and so on.
Ooh, I want a dragon costume.
You are a dragon. What are you talking about?
Would be a bigger dragon.
It would, believe it or not, it would not be the first time that we have had a Dragonborn requested dragon costume.
All right.
Well, I am certain that a presentation for the Fey Court has only the finest artisans associated with it.
Naturally. We are
Either way.
constantly besieged with those who are eager to show off their best attempts, but only the best of the best are allowed to stay in residence.
Perfect.
Lead the way.
Well, so first you may dress and present yourselves with any of your required supplies. Your effects are all in that chest over there. And when you are ready, I can lead you to the stage, if that is your first destination. You are, of course, on the schedule to present your tale and be granted your names back once more. There is also a request from Lentha Nurventara to discuss the problems of the realm of dream before you depart our fair shores. But that can be done at your convenience.
I think I would like to be myself before we tackle that.
Of course, as you wish.
So on with the show.
All right. So I think that, as promised, all your stuff is there, and so you can collect all of your weapons and armor and doodads and so on. Everything has been cleaned, but is otherwise, undamaged or as you would have left it. There is a little ribbon tied around the tower, blocking the little door, with a little note signed by Favril that says, "Cleaners, this area to remain off limits." And then but you are all kind of guided over to a workshop that's kind of nearby that stage area, and pretty much you can find just about anything you would like, from the idea of, designing sets or costumes or any of those sorts of things that you might want to prepare.
I'd like to believe that there is someone there named Philivandrel Void Weber,
Sure, of course.
and that we consult with this person to make sure that our musical numbers are super on point, because we've just been through a lot, and Lynn is always top notch, but we got to make this even more top notch than top notch.
I want to see if I can get them to make Buster a costume as my emotional support animal, and also one as like, see if I can get him to consider wearing a saddle.
Yeah, I'm just imagining the great big, like emotional support animal vest that would fit to fit a gray render. I imagine also that you put it on him, and he is just constantly like rubbing it on stuff and like rolling on his back and like
I
trying to
will
get used to
spend
it.
a lot of time working with him to see if I can get him used to the idea of wearing clothes.
So there definitely has to be a number in the show where Garland, it's when he overindulged in ministering
Mm-hmm.
whatever to the people, and we're gonna need to see some duplication spells, and I want a dragonborn kickline, please and thank you.
It'd be a rainbow-colored dragonborn kick line.
Mm-hmm.
I want like a super somber number where I go and indulge my vice and I'm like helping people cross over, but it has to be like really dark and somber.
Nice. They have some very skilled illusionists here that are helping you to have some base level of like practical sets and that sort of thing, and extras, but many of the more elaborate pieces are done with very clever illusion magic. Looks great. They're very good at their job.
And then there'll have to be a very no, I shouldn't do that because I didn't tell anybody, and that'd be a shitty way to find out. Yeah, I'm just yeah. Here's this thing I never told you. Bomb drop. No, we're not doing that.
Just keep that secret to yourself.
Hang on to that one.
I think
Would've made
Purity says
a
Valor can
pretty
play
cool
himself,
number,
but
though.
I suggest you recast me. I'll watch. It's
Aw.
fine.
I
All right.
can understand with someone with your difficulties with affectation. Completely understood.
I think we should cast like one of the people that, oh my god, we just talked about it. The little Feywild people that their emotions
Eladrin?
like
Eladrin.
yes,
Mhm.
Eladrin. God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Wait,
think we should have an
is it that
Eladrin play.
easy? Can you recast me too?
No.
I think that like as you're having that exchange, the camera pans over to like a velvet rope with just dozens of actors holding like sides and looking hopeful.
Kind of want that shot from I forget which one of the Thor movies it was, but there's the play version of them,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
There's one in every Thor
Ben
movie.
Affleck and Matt
No,
Damon
well,
playing
well,
us.
it's Matt Damon and
Casey Affleck, I think,
Or
isn't
Casey
it?
No,
Affleck,
it's
yeah.
it's what
Oh,
it's one of
there's a bunch of them.
Chris Hemsworth's brothers, right?
Liam.
Yeah, Liam
Yeah,
Hemsworth
I think so.
is the other one. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Anyway,
Danny DeVito can play Vertigo.
and then we have to have a number with the Lady Despair, a very poor unfortunate souls kind of
Yes.
there.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm just again my sort of face cast of Olivia Colman for the Lady Despair. I can totally envision her doing just a really fun villain song.
Slinking around the stage like a
It's funny
1930s movie star. Like
because I keep thinking
Picture.
about the little satyr from Hercules,
Mm-hmm.
like playing the part of Nedry.
Phil.
Yeah, playing the role of Nedry in that same kind of like gruff
Mm-hmm.
New York vibe, which is so not Nedry. So it would be hilarious.
Satyr from Brooklyn. That's cool.
Yes.
It could be the like the Ember Island Players episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yes.
All right. So, I mean, feel free to do as much or as little of this sort of planning and stuff as you like. I mean, I think that as you are getting ready, you are basically, like you are given a showtime that is somehow miraculously just the amount of time that you feel like you need.
Nice. Definitely need like a Titan song
Mm-hmm.
where we sing the sad despair of the
Mm-hmm.
Titan and the freedom of it
Yeah.
passing on.
I think Vertigo tries to produce because he has Minor Illusion and the Cantrip version as well, Static Illusion, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Tries to produce some illusions around the Titan and his experience, but they are quite unsettling and completely incomprehensible. They don't form solid shapes. They have every time you walk around the illusion, it's like one of those shadow illusions that as you walk around, it seems to take on entirely different shapes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize that the fixed thing you saw is actually made of multiple layers of different things. That when you move just a little bit further, it takes on an entirely different cast.
Nice.
And he kind of gets lost probably in like half a day of just doing that and trying, because it becomes a research experiment at that point, trying to
Mm-hmm.
capture what he's thought and understood and so forth.
Yeah.
Um,
And I,
There also definitely has to be a number with the treasure hunters, like towards the very end,
Mhm.
marching through the kelp forest, very much like because I want to add to the list of Disney movies we're comparing this to, from the mob song in Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
Okay.
Through the mist, through the woods.
hmm God, that's a good song.
Mm.
Oddly enough, good movie. Who would have thought? Anyway, um,
We could
but
open
yeah.
with one for Mulan.
I need an Aladdin song.
So I think that some of your collaborators here point show how they have a whole like squadron of fairy dragons that are trained to fly in formation and do illusions, and so kind of like they do with drones, they can make a big titan illusion to seem to like be big enough to fill like the whole sky.
It was bigger. Can you do bigger? Bigger still? A
And
bit more.
and that is like it's like, well, you see, actually I understand what you're coming from in terms of the actual proportionate size, but believe me, in this venue, bigger than this will become lost to the eye.
That'd be about right.
That's okay. I also think that we should have some of these little Fey Dragon illusionists create like an effect over the entire show that's like we're underwater, like
hmm
that rippling
Oh
gold.
yeah, yeah. No, so fairy dragons absolutely can cast what I believe it's called like hallucinatory terrain or something like that. It's
Mhm.
basically it's like an illusion that covers the whole landscape in a like a square
Perfect.
mile area or something like that.
This is going to be the best show ever.
What were was it snail races that you guys were going to?
They were turtles. They
Link
were they
turtles.
were link turtles.
That's what it was. So that'll be fun to recreate.
Mhm.
I feel like casting all of this in a very like with very strange actors, like the
Yes.
Lost Broker played by Arnold Schwarzenegger or something. Just kind of like twisted
Nicholas
perspectives.
Cage.
Nicholas Cage.
I'm feeling something more like
Cage plays the Lady Despair.
I'm feeling more of a what is his name from Fast Times? Spicoli,
Oh,
Oh yeah,
Sean Penn.
yeah. Sean
Sean
Penn
Penn.
Lost Broker.
as the Lost Broker. Oh my.
Come on, dudes, make fate deal with me.
Oh man. I can't. Um yeah.
We're just like piecemealing this
Oh,
together.
sure,
little
no,
by little.
I think
It's
that's great. Like,
funny.
yeah. So I think we can just imagine all the little bits. We can sort of imagine that we're seeing little snapshots.
There does need to be a group effort with extras doing the call of the Titan. Just like every one of them kind of repeating the call, the call, the call, all in unison in different places, different volumes, to kind of stress just how everywhere that was.
Yeah, and we could have a song about the call too, that is like all this crazy, beautiful, enchanting music.
Yeah. Here's a question. Obviously, the Lord of the Hunt played a role in the finale, right? Or the finale there in the Moonshadowed Sea, at least. You probably you may be wanting to include the Realm of Dream portion as well. So I don't know what your big climax is, but here's the question. I want to know how all of you approach the idea of whether you should cast someone to play the Lord of the Hunt.
Oh no, would absolutely ask them to be in it and give
Yes.
them these glorious spotlight roles because that's what they want.
But at the same time, would he rather get to sit in his big cool chair and watch someone do a show about how cool he is?
Probably should ask. At least give them the option.
Yeah.
Because we would cordially invite him to participate when his moment arrives. But if he would prefer to remain in the audience, we would certainly understand.
We will have Sylvester Stallone play him.
I think that you arrange for a note to be like to sent to him to basically ask the question, and I think it just gets sent back with like scrawled on it, busy, cast someone else, but here are my notes, and then suddenly just it like unfolds. And there are just
Studio
pages and
notes.
pages and pages of stipulations of like they want you to cast someone, but it has to be someone like this, not like this, and like this, and not like this, and then make sure you do this part and this part.
I am
Okay.
sure this theater has a casting director.
And I think it also is clear to you looking at it that he probably wrote just the word busy, and everything else was done by someone else.
The acolyte of the hunt, the secretary of the hunt.
But I think you're able to do as much preparation as you need, and I think one of the things that probably occurs to you at some point during this whole process really is kind of just the timeless nature of existence here. I mean, to some extent, it's true in the Feywild just generally, but time kind of feels like it just sort of stretches on indefinitely here, partly because you don't really have sunrises or sunsets here. It's just always kind of seems like it's that, that early morning golden hour time. And nobody ever seems particularly in like they occasionally will seem in a hurry, but only just for whatever they're doing right at that moment. It's never because, oh, we need to take a, hurry to finish this thing in time for that thing. It's always just like whatever they're working on in that moment is urgent. But even then, there's still a feeling of like, there's enough time. There's always enough time. There will always be enough time. It just pervades this whole space here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, any more bits and pieces of this show that you want to imagine?
We should probably talk about how much more we tell.
Well, I think the majority of what we need to tell them is from the point that we left here until the time that we came back. That is what we are trading them.
Mm-hmm.
I think we also need to have a chorus of those that we left behind, like our gang of thugs.
Dennis.
Mm-hmm.
I can see all of the lights going dim, and then like not extremely bright spotlights, but on each of us, you know, saying these lines like, "We take this moment to thank for the to give thanks for the service of," you know, and then we
Mm-hmm.
name our people.
I think
They
there's
may have been small parts, but never small players.
Scummy wink.
I think Deneth is the bit part that all of the actors are really competing for. You know, it's like a relatively small role, but gets some really good scenes, especially since they get to play, like, you know, the actor presumably plays both Deneth regular and then also Deneth in disguise, right? Or Lynn Primrose in disguise.
Um, we would probably have to pick his brain a whole lot about what his the one that when he won the crown,
Mm-hmm.
how like I don't know how much of the fashion he'll be able to detail, but we will certainly be peppering him with questions, trying to get everything right. And
Well, so here's a question: do you imagine that Deneth came with you here?
He did. He was in the tower.
Mm,
We protected him and had him in the
Yeah,
tower.
he was hidden
Yep.
from everything.
okay. I
We
had
told
kind
him
of
we would
not.
get him out.
Well, there you
Yeah.
go.
Yep.
I had assumed that he was left behind like all of the other crew members or
Nope.
whatever. But okay, yeah, all right. I think he like I think you stayed in the infirmary for a while, and then there's like he's just been in there the whole time. Like nobody, because they were you know, they were given instructions not to mess with the tower, so he didn't know it was safe to come out, and he's just been in there.
He was like, there was like one apple that we bought, and he
Hmm.
just ate that for like 6 days. Like every day he'd take a bite. Poor Dennis.
I think he'll be all right.
Yeah, he's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have always just shrunk himself, so then one apple would have been like enormous.
I bet he did because we did talk to him about the shrinking and the growing. So
Well, that's not the kind of thing you just want to stumble on. I mean, you have to warn a person, hey, if you go up the
Exactly.
stairs all the way up, then everything's going to be real big.
I just
I mean, I think
imagine
you'd
this.
figure it out,
I just
right? Like,
imagine this sequence because Deneth was a little bit pathetic, where he's like, I can go small and I can eat this big apple, and he realizes, I took the apple with me. Then he drops the apple,
Yes.
goes big. I got to get the apple again. Where did it go?
mhm.
You can't
This
find
whole
it 'cause
sequence
it's
of
like
trying. It's like Scooby Doo trying to figure out how to get the right combination.
and now when he's small and he made a point to leave the apple, but he didn't leave it in a nearby place. So now that he's small, it takes a long time to walk to where he left the apple at.
Yeah,
It's like, oh wait, no, I left it at the top. So do I have to climb all the way back up? Well, no, I could go back around and well, yeah.
we discover there's just a giant apple core blocking the door when we get back in.
yeah.
Buster, eat your veggies.
Nice. All right. So I guess what's the question then for Deneth? What's the plan? Because like Curity and Valor certainly are presuming that you are going to take them back to the material plane with them, but I don't
Well, we
know.
would ask him where he wanted to go.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
think
you can get to anywhere from anywhere anymore,
yeah.
so
Well, I think he looks around at this incredibly you know, gorgeous autumn forest grove surrounded by um, beautiful Eladrin and people clamoring for his attention because he's famous now, and he's like, you know, I'll hang out here for a bit. I think, you know.
Well,
The fortune has
my,
changed for Dennis.
yep. My plan for him was to take him to Father Wilfram and let him help out around the orphanage until he figured out where he wanted to be and what he wanted to do, and actually have him be around some good people for a while.
What's wrong with my cult people?
well, I mean, he does have
You're
familiarity
really
with the
needing
Feywild
him for
now,
that.
so
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable and logical choice that you present, Garland. But I also think that Dennis doesn't do reasonable and logic choices. So
Mm-mm. He did kind of like my proselytizing about the Mistress of the Dark. So,
Hmm.
Oh,
Well,
you can't send him to the Shadowfell,
oh
though.
no,
I
I
think
won't.
I think at this point he might even like I'm kind of done with commitments for a while.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think he's suggesting, without being really insistent about it, that he's gonna just hang out here as long as they'll let him.
I think they would probably let him too, just because he's all famous now. He
Yeah.
was such a big role in helping us
Hmm.
defeat the Lady
Yep.
Despair.
Yeah.
And he's the only person who ever won the crown twice.
Hmm. And he'll probably, wear out his welcome and get turned into something eventually, but maybe not for a while.
Yeah, I just imagine meeting someone who knows him, and then we're like, "Oh, he's in a better place now. He's dead? No,
But it
but
is
in a much
better.
better
It's
place."
definitely a better place. Like there's this beautiful forest glade upstate, and he gets to eat whatever he wants,
Oh, is
and
that the story
lots
in
of room
in
to
in
run.
Sakamian when oh we had to take your dog to the Feywild?
Yeah.
It's awful.
It turns out there's like the Beastlands are populated with pooches that didn't make it,
Mm. Or they made it to
or they well
for
they
the
did, but
Beastlands.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah. So I think that you put together all your preparations, and things go off with just the right amount of tiny hitches that give it character. You know, that remind you it's live theater. You wouldn't want it to be perfect. You need it to be, you know, just a little bit raw, because that makes it more exciting in some ways. It's not slick, and but the story is certainly an impressive one, and you do have in attendance the full complement of Archfey that you had previously presented for, which, if you all need reminding, the Lord of the Hunt does show up. He does. He. There's just a little sign saying reserved on his chair for the first half, but he does show up for his scenes. Um, and there's also Ice Prince Rimethek de Aviel, Lentha Nurventera, who is the one is in all the different like sort of patchwork scarves. Luminessa Everbright, who is like this silhouette of just light, and of course two empty chairs that weren't ever full when you were here. But after, there is rapturous applause from all of the other people watching, and polite opera clapping from the Archfey. They you all are sort of brought out for a curtain call, and as a sort of a voice from one of the presenters off stage sort of is giving you like the credit, as you are sort of taking your bow at the end, they credit you as Zinhorn, Zaleen, Nedry, and Lynn. And when they do, it really does feel as though, oh yeah, I was wearing a mask that I've just taken off. I was wearing it and I totally forgot that I had it on. But you do feel yourselves now. It's not that you don't remember the other things, but once again, it feels a little bit like it was something you did while acting in a play. It wasn't you, it was the role you were playing. But you are now yourselves again.
I have reverted back to that human form, Carolina Swift,
Mm-hmm. All right.
because I have to define that now.
yeah, I think Vertigo creates a static illusion of what he used to be,
Mm-hmm.
and then just lets it drop like water.
I'm just me.
Silver spandex and all.
Nice. I think Evan probably keeps a few pieces of his Aster like ninja outfit, but mostly is back to normal. And Ivy, of course, also probably like I think she keeps the hat, but she doesn't wear it all the time. She's back to her sort of normal clothes, but keeps the hat as a memento. And certainly you have put on an incredible show. There's lots of attention. I think anytime you are sort of in public, there are people who want to talk to you and just to talk about your show or the story itself, and you're sort of famous and popular in that way. But it is also made clear to you discreetly that you only have to put up with as much of that as you want to. And
I would put up with all of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Vertigo's out pretty quick.
Yeah. So you
I'm
are
looking
definitely
for-
provided with a private place where you can go and don't have to be besieged.
All right.
Right. So with that done, before we get to that, like, I would like to. I wonder if the sending stones would work here. Like, I think there's a chance of failure, right? Or-
Yeah. So as we kind of discussed in the meta a little bit, part of the issue here with trying to communicate with the material plane is that the time is wobbly, right? And the problem, like if you were to do ascending, it requires us to sort of fix time, right? It would have to pair your current now to some time period in the material plane when, until you leave, in principle, it has not yet been decided how much time will have passed over there. There's a couple of different ways that you could theoretically approach that, right? Because on the one hand, you could imagine that it's not about time passing any differently while you're here, but rather just slippage during the transit back, right? Which would mean that, but at the same time, like if we want to imagine that every day you spent here was only a minute back there, like how do we do the sending that way? So I don't want to just be saying, no, it doesn't work, but I guess I want to just discuss with you in the meta a little table talk here. Like how do we want to handle that?
I don't feel like it would work, or it would be all super slow or super fast, and you wouldn't be able to understand it unless you had magic to sort of like slow
mean,
it
it could-
down or speed it up.
It might go out, but the response might not happen until we leave.
Right.
Mostly because I was thinking that probably need to at least prep Yobert for us returning, because we don't know what's going to happen. It could be that, Curity steps foot inside Sunya, which sounds really weird, but and then the castle starts falling out of the sky. We don't want that.
Well,
So
how would she step into the castle if it was flying? I mean, I'm assuming it would be like grounded.
well, that's the thing. We don't know. No idea.
That's my big worry.
Well, you haven't really discussed with anyone yet how you're planning to get back in the first place. And I think you have collectively the capabilities now, but
Well,
you hadn't really
likely-
decided how you were going to try to manage it.
So I would think that part of Emerald Arboris would connect somewhere very close to the Fey Court, and then we would have our choice of where to go.
Yeah.
But navigating the tree is a lot
Well,
more difficult.
recall that normally, you got here with Amethyst's help, right? So normally it would be impossible for randos to end up here climbing through the tree, right? But you kind of had like special permission. They would have had protected those branches unless you're with someone as impressive as Amethyst. But I think I'm just going to veto sending spells just because I can't think of a way to make it work in a fun way.
Well, that's why I thought maybe like instead of that, just send a letter, still probably magically, but
Back in time.
Well, are there fake couriers that could carry something like that?
I'm sure there's gotta be something like that. Where's our concierge? What's his name? Favril?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Real-
Favril! The
Uh,
question.
Yes, how can I help you?
If I wanted to get a missive to someone in the material plane, how would I go about doing that?
Well, it's a rather difficult question. I'm sure before you traveled here, you were made aware of the rather special relationship that the Feywild shares with the material plane vis-a-vis contemporaneous time passage.
Yes, timey-wimey. Got it.
Yes.
Mm.
So, ordinarily, for mortals, when they would be traveling between the Feywild and the material plane, they are somewhat rolling the dice, as we say, with regard to how much time will pass in the material plane compared to how much time they spend here in the Feywild. Now, here in the court of the Archfey, they, of course, if you are in their favor, as you most certainly are, have the ability to guide that process and have it result in the manner of time passage that you would prefer. But the difficulty is, let's say, for example, that your desire is that every day you spend here is only a minute in the material plane. Now let's imagine that you have sent a letter ahead of you, and you wait an entire week. In the material plane, they still would have only had your letter for 7 minutes. So it can be done. It's just there's a bit of a gap. It's a bit like in these fantasy stories about traveling great distances into the stars and there being a light speed delay.
Well, could we do something like have the letter sent 3 days before we arrive? Does that sound good?
And that would result in it having, like, once you do arrive, it would have only been 3 minutes since your letter arrived.
I think
So
if we return cautiously, not directly, we can give them warning when we return.
that's what my thought was going to be too. That if we return somewhere specifically, not to right where they are.
That is what I was just going to suggest. If the concern is simply that you don't want to show up somewhere unannounced, it strikes me that you have the resources necessary to appear more or less wherever you would like. You can simply choose to arrive somewhere more out of the way, then send your message, and then have your reunion with the appropriate forewarning. It can be done to send the message, it just has the difficulties that I just described.
That makes sense, I think.
It is, in fact, much more common for those not in the Archfey's favor to find, for example, they send a message saying, I will return in 2 days, only to find that 200 years have passed once they arrive themselves. Somewhat disappointing for the recipient of the letter, I'm sure. Both parties, really.
Especially if the recipient's human.
Well, in that case, we should probably take an audience with she who
Princess of
requested
Dream.
us.
Very well. Are you ready now?
We ready?
Follow me. She
Ready.
has an observatory of sorts. And they guide you, like, you know, across the campus to a big. It looks almost a bit like a greenhouse, but it does have sort of a big circular open window at the top that, as you look at it from outside, it looks somehow dark inside. Like, looking through the window from outside makes it look like it's dark inside, which is kind of a neat trick. But as you make your way in there, it does suddenly feel as though it's nighttime, but only while you're inside the building. And this window up above shows a starry sky. And Lentha is there. She's very tall. She's like 10 feet tall, but dressed in all of these very colorful patchwork scarves that basically cover her from head to toe. You don't really see any exposed skin at all. But she is just sitting cross-legged on a very fancy carpet in the center of the room underneath this window. And she, as you arrive, she just gestures to like join her around this little circular carpet.
And then we'll join her around the circular carpet.
I think Vertigo is looking up at the stars and trying to identify any patterns that he might recognize.
I think that every time your eyes sort of catch a familiar constellation, it's like you feel like the stars move in response to you noticing them. It's almost like if the constellation catches you watching it, it hides. That's what it feels like when you look up at it.
Can I just share that's my actual experience with looking up at stars? For whatever reason, the way my eyes are designed, if I see one at the corner of my eye, I notice it. But if I look directly at it, I can't see it.
But so in any case, as you are all gathered, she looks to you and says, "There were things that I had hoped to talk to you about with regard to the plane of dream, but some of what I thought that I would have to explain may be apparent to you after your experience there."
Yeah, it was pretty bad. And
Terrifying.
thank you, by the way, for the rescue.
Of course. I was watching carefully, as I have been for some time. Although the province of Nightmare is not new to the dreamscape, nightmares have been a feature of all dreaming beings since the dawn of creation. But there is a leakage. There is a bleed. And energy from outside the realm of dream is seeping back in. This energy originated there and so returns easily, but it has been transformed. This is something that has been happening slowly for quite some time.
So I imagine we would have all discussed how much we want to tell her, depending on what she knows.
You don't really know how much she knows.
Well, she might have some insight on what we do know about, these people transforming this dream energy and then not repaying, the price for, the debt that they owe for taking that magic.
Mhm.
Because that might make some difference to her. She might be able to explain it.
Mhm.
Nedry. Seems like
don't
the
know
kind
if-
of thing you would you would do.
Well, also, I'm not really sure there's much. The Archfey are powerful,
Mm.
and I don't think I could presume to lie to any one of them.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I want to hide any information. I think that they should know everything.
Maybe you should try and detect nightmare right now, just in case.
Yeah, I actually would have done that on Deneth, or not Deneth, Curity as well.
Okay. Yeah,
To
you
see
don't
if-
detect any.
Yeah, I figured that was probably the case, but
Mhm.
it would have been because she hasn't changed. Is she still infested? No. Okay, fine.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
It's. I think with with some discussion, for example, with the healers and so on, you determined that like the nature of her curse was not nightmare in nature. It was just a
Mhm.
dark fey curse from a powerful entity.
But given how everything is bleeding together, he would
Yes.
still be
No,
suspicious and want to confirm.
understood. Yeah, but yes,
Um,
I think your spell would
in
confirm that there's no nightmare in her. And so if you do it here in this room, you find that there is uh you find that there is some nightmare energy in the room, but it seems localized. And you look over, and there's this little display rack, like a little cabinet of curiosities sort of thing that's up on the wall. And you see on there is a little glowing sphere of the kind that you have seen emerge from the pipe when you fused it.
okay,
Hmm.
We've learned a little bit about how to spot it, how to see it, how to notice its effects, and how to remove it. Even to some degree to how to harness what remains. We hope safely, but it's hard to tell. Those that came before us knew a lot more, but I think they realized a lot less until it was almost too late. We benefited from their knowledge, but there's still a lot more to do. Somehow.
So, just as a broader question, are you trying to keep anything from her?
I think in Vertigo's case, it's the exact opposite. He wants to pump her
No,
brain for
sure.
ideas. And
No,
thoughts,
absolutely.
and-
That's why I'm just trying to clarify is if there's anything that you are not sharing.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that if she wanted to, like, it would not be hard for her to just like,
Yeah. Well,
pick
like
our brains.
not only might she already know what you're trying to keep from her, but she also might just literally be able to tell that you're not telling her something. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
I think
good
for
instincts
Vertigo,
in that
it's
regard, but that's why I just wanted to.
it's like a report to Tessa Tam at this
Mhm.
point, where he's basically just giving it all
Oh yeah,
away
absolutely.
and calling for comments.
Hmm. And she says, "It is fascinating to hear reports from other angles of the phenomena that I have been witnessing from here. It certainly confirms my own observations that the realm of dream is changing in its nature in a way that has been slow over time, but its ability to absorb this new energy is reaching its capacity, much in the way that a leak in the roof might be contained for a while with a bucket, but eventually the bucket fills. The realm of the dream is nearing capacity."
And we're fairly sure that one of the best ways that we can tackle this problem is to go where it started. There may still be those that are trapped there, who can help or need rescuing. And then to deal with whatever started this. Somehow. Just everything that we were doing here was for.
It is your destiny, I think, to unlock what has been locked. But the outcome, that is not yet determined. The lines of fate have converged to an inflection point. I believe that you will break the seal. But what happens next cannot be foretold. You will need to be clever. You will need to be cautious. But there is possibility. There is great power to be found within that place. Power such that even when sealed away, that power cannot be fully contained, and it has found its way to leak out through dreams. That power cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed. Bear that in mind as you proceed.
I'm gonna notice her little cabinet of curiosities there and point to the stone that looks so familiar to ones that we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell us exactly what that is?
So just you mean the little sphere? She reaches for it, and it just sort of floats over to her hand, and she peers at it for a moment, and she says, "This was gifted to me by an individual who seemed, like you all, to know much about what was happening. Is it your desire to have this? Or simply
I'm
to
gonna be like,
understand it?" Okay. Yes.
Well, it could come in handy,
No.
but I would be careful of it.
We've seen those things before, and we were just wondering what you knew about it. Maybe you knew something we didn't.
She holds it out to you and she says, "This is synecdoche of your entire problem." And I know that's a big word, but
Blank stare.
it is meaningful. It is a part of something that represents the whole. It is, in miniature, Dinirther itself. A part that represents the whole. In much the same way that Dinuther was sealed away, the energy has been sealed in this.
So
That's nightmare energy.
in
You know that, right?
And she kind of cocks her head and says, "It is energy."
so my question that I kind of I wonder, because the state that what it came from is not necessarily something good. Um, for example, it might have been something that was trying to kill you. Um, when that energy, which energy in and of itself isn't necessarily good or bad, right?
Mhm.
So when that energy is used for something, does all of it change, or do some of those properties remain? And if they don't remain, where do they go? Does that make sense?
There are those who, with training, find that in their dreams they can become the master of their own experience. They shape their dreams in whatever way they see fit. And when they do, a dream that might be a terrifying nightmare to one becomes empowering because they can master it. It only becomes terrifying without the control. But that dream exists whether controlled or not. And the will to shape it from one form to another simply transforms energy from one type to another. But there is always balance. And so in this form, the energy that had manifested as a nightmare has, through willful action, been sealed and transformed into this inert state. If released, it could be used for many things. If it were to be released without control, it might once again become what you are calling a nightmare. If it was released with control and understanding of its properties, it might be used to power a good deed. But what cannot happen is it cannot stay the way it is forever, and it must be used to do something.
That may have been their mistake.
Indeed, in sealing away Dinuther, it would appear that these brave souls you mentioned, Tilitha and her comrades, unwittingly replicated the very mistake that the leaders that they so feared had. They sought to contain the problem in the same way that the leaders of this city sought to accumulate the wealth, to seal it, the power hoarded, contained for only a few, and not allowed to circulate, to transform and become something else. This is what taints it. And this is what allows it to leak into the plane of dream. Because the dream had such capacity, this did not go noticed for some time. But the time has come now Dinuther cannot remain as it was, or else all of the plains will become overrun with this negative energy.
Do we know if there are still good people in Denethor that can be saved?
She looks to you and just says, how do you define who is good and who is worthy of saving?
In this case, it's people who have used this this magical hack to get the magic but not pay for it, and the people who haven't. And anyone who hasn't and wouldn't use it, I think is worth saving. Although, I don't, yeah.
I would urge you to consider, before going in there, it may well be that there are those who have been victims only, but there are also those trapped within a system where they feel that they must do what they can to survive.
We've also witnessed corruption, even when we've done good.
And for that matter, do you see the world outside of that Dinether sphere as without corruption?
This is corruption that could end all existence.
I think what she's
Slowly
trying
and
to say, though, is
painfully.
that people are people, and you should just try to save all of them if you can. Everyone deserves a second chance.
Well,
She cocks her head at you and says, "Is that what I said?"
I'm not so sure Tanglefoot deserves too many more chances.
No.
The person who gave this to you, do you know who or what they were?
I think she actually pauses for a moment and says, I made a vow not to share that. What I am saying is not that there is a right answer or a wrong one, but that, like dreams, if you wish to have control over your experience, you must exert your will and follow through. Lest you be swept away in the currents that roil there.
You saw what we faced in the world of Dream. It was more powerful than anything we'd seen before. More concentrated, more intent. And it did not do us well. We will be strong, and we will try. But if you know of anything that might help us there, if we face that again, personally, I think that a longer distance is helpful, as well as quickly running away. But that might not be the option.
The seal of Dinuther has been building pressure, and it will be released. I cannot say what the outcome of that release will be. But the planes will find a balance once again, one way or another. If you have a preference for how that might happen, you will need to decide what you wish to see and then follow through. To voyage in without intent, without will, is to be carried away by the dream.
Not unlike the moon-shadowed sea.
And she nods then and says, "There is Titan magic at work in all of this. And there are none now who live who have more experience with the Titans than you now."
So no pressure?
No pressure that you do not put on yourselves. And then I think you all kind of find yourself like suddenly your eyes are sort of drooping, and you do that thing where your head kind of droops for a second, you kind of sit back up, and that happens more or less to all of you simultaneously. And when you do, she's not there in the room with you anymore.
That was a pretty cool exit.
And out of 10 for style. And out of 10 for substance, too, as well as mystery.
Like a dream.
I wonder if Percival Cankers has been here passing out his little toys.
We won't know who exactly, but I had expected one of Tanglefoot's people to try to do more here. There was all the corruption when we arrived before, which is evidence of them passing through, I think.
So something that's been eating at me, I didn't get the chance to ask her. The other 2 seats, I think it was just 2, right?
Yeah.
The ones that were empty.
Mm-hmm.
I wish we knew who those belonged to. And
I mean, you could ask that. It's not like a secret.
but also why they're not there, unless it's
I think
obvious.
I think one of them is Solomonia's chair, but she doesn't show up here anymore because she's got her own.
She's too cool now.
Yeah, exactly. So one of them is definitely would normally be hers if she was ever here. The other one, I think, like you could ask, but like I don't think you were told.
Well, then I would wager to guess it was the see, this is the Dawn Court, so the Twilight Court. What was her name?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I'm trying to remember.
Solomonia and
It was Hieronymus.
her. That would be my guess.
Her exalted majesty, Queen Hieronymus, the glorified empress of the twilight court, risen of the moon, tender of astral gardens, enchantress of the heavens, source of all joy, creator of baubles, and mistress of time. It's actually not clear. I don't know that we have explored what she's up to now that her kind of counterpoint has ascended in the way that Solomonia did.
Well, maybe we could ask. For real? The question.
Yes.
I never hear much about it, and I mean, I've never been there either. But how is the Twilight Court faring these days? I mean, with her competition in absentia, how are things over there? Are they okay?
Well, I suppose that's That's a subjective question. I would dare say that they are the way they wish to be. However, certainly their approach has quite many differences from the way that things are handled here at the Dawn Court. I am endeavoring not to let my personal preferences bias my answer, but I do have a preference, as you might imagine. Certainly, historically, the two courts were much more paired and opposed, equivalent in many respects, much in the way that in the material plane the dawn follows the dusk and so on. But since Empress Solomonia's self-claimed promotion, she has organized much of the Dawn Court into a more formal and regimented structure. Not entirely such, especially here in the Feywild. We are allowed to do things in the Feywild way. But as a result of the presence of her foil in such a lawful place as Mount Celestia, Queen Heratimus has chosen to go rather the other direction, which has resulted in her being less available to petitioners and to court life generally.
Have you spent any time there? Like,
Oh dear, no.
have you?
I'm sorry. Yes, I don't want that to be misunderstood. No, I'm a Dawn Court person. If that makes any sense.
Oh no, that
Yes.
does make sense. I mean, people travel, so
Yes, but it's a bit like.
you just seem like you know everything about everything around here.
Well, I dare say I know quite a bit. That does not mean that I wish to travel places there where the stock and trade is things that I don't care for.
I mean, that's fair.
More than fair.
I prefer to stay here because I like it here, as opposed to going a place where they quite deliberately choose differently on almost every subject.
Well, so I was just wondering if you had, because you seem to know so much, if you had heard maybe any murmurings of a new favored friend that Queen Herodimus might have, someone who is exceptionally close to her.
Uh,
That wasn't always there.
that has not been my impression. Now, bear in mind, I'm reporting this to you now purely on the basis of gossip. But she has, in many respects, as I mentioned, retreated from court life as we experience it here. She is less embodied in her typical form and does not see people. She has retreated to solitude by a large extent and allowed the Twilight Court to be largely ungoverned.
The only reason I ask is solely because we've known some individuals that have inserted themselves into places of power with the intent to corrupt people with a great deal of influence.
Well, I cannot rule out the possibility of secret infiltrators, but if there is any such whispering about Queen Heratimus's court, I've not heard it myself. But then again, she is, as I mentioned, not so much in the business of wielding her influence or power these days. Ever since that business with the Solomonia's ascension and the stolen moment and all of that, it was really not not a black eye as such. It's not as though things happened differently than she would have wanted, but it left her with a bad taste in her mouth, so to speak, when it comes to engaging with mortals and the like. And so she is, as I mentioned, retreated more to a solitary existence, which seems to be as she likes it these days.
Okay.
Or I
Well,
suppose
I thank you
knights
for
over
your.
there in the Twilight Court.
I appreciate the information.
Of course.
So I think we're probably good on that one, guys.
Good to know.
I think we've got enough to do without finding more problems.
Yeah, there's that too.
Okay, so how do we go about getting home?
Well, that's easy. I think it should be easy. Easier than last time, anyway. I still have the tablet,
Oh,
and it can make a gate.
man, I'm just
Any
barely healed up from
chance
our last trip.
we're gonna wind up in the wrong place? I mean, we
There's
were supposed to get to the Fey Court, and we wound up a court short.
I haven't done much interplanar travel, and that particular rule didn't seem exactly fitting for something as extraordinarily powerful, but I may have miscalculated. I was communicating with a Titan for a considerable amount of time before that, so maybe some of my faculties were inefficient, but
Mm-hmm.
I've been rested, and I understand it more.
Are you okay? You seem confused a lot, overwhelmed.
When the I I was lit on fire from the inside. It did not leave ashes, but it left scars. But those scars are not painful. They are full of wonder and change. It may take some time to fully understand, but I will.
All right.
Okay, but real talk though, how likely is it that we would not go where we wanted to go?
I don't think there's a strong possibility of a problem, but I think it would be a general rule that we should follow in most of this matter to be prepared.
Well, if we end up stuck in the dream plane of dream again, we're not going to have a princess of dream to come and save us. So that's really hard to prepare for. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
we're there yet. So I was just thinking maybe if there was a more um typical way of how people would travel from here to there, that we should probably just take that and say not bust out the big magic just yet until we need it.
I don't think the words typical are used very often for the Feywild, or for interplanar travel for that matter.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm,
I would think yes, because there's traders, if you look in the marketplace, there's all kinds of products from all different planes of existence. I think it's more typical than it used to be. People just climbing that tree now and
Well, so reminder that one of the specific things that you need to keep in mind when you're planning to go back is that unless you are doing it specifically with the Archfey's blessing,
Mhm.
you are rolling the dice as far as how much time will pass. So if you don't want that to happen, you need them to actively be involved. So you probably could find any number of different ways back on your own, but you would be at risk of time slippage unless you do it specifically with their assistance.
So in this case, would probably have to talk to Favril again because I'm sure he knows they know the proper protocol for these things.
Yeah, so like they had seemed to leave, but as soon as you say that again, it's like, oh, I'm here. Uh,
So how? Yeah, but question about the travel.
yes, it was assumed that you wished to return to the material plane at your convenience, and that can be arranged as soon as you are ready. We presume to that you would desire as little time as possible to have passed in the material plane. That can certainly be arranged. But if you were to request some alternate arrangement, that could be done as well.
I think we've lost enough time in a way already.
Right, but I think it'd be weird if we were gone less than a day. I'm trying to remember the circumstances under which we left. Okay, so we were
Yeah.
at Amethyst sent us here.
So
Right,
from
okay.
Emirate Arboris.
Right.
Yeah.
It was like sometimes we leave places and there was something like actively hunting us. So it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah, so okay, so to refresh your memory on that score, you had been for a brief period at the capital with Sunia and everyone kind of that back there. You had been sort of cleared as far as any sort of criminal charges, and that you were sort of ostensibly working with them, and that you used their teleportation circle to travel to Emirate Arboris for the purposes of traveling to the Feywild to get this diamond. And recall that the last you had heard about the other piece that you needed was that they were working on a replacement, and that was very mysterious. You don't recall, they did not elaborate on what that means, but the tricky thing is that Ivy told you she saw a portrait of the emperor in the castle, where in the painting he seemed to be wearing a necklace that matched the description of the one you need.
did we ever I don't even remember if we discussed it. Our the friend of the emperor,
Mm-hmm.
if maybe he was one of these tangle feet creatures.
You definitely did the detect nightmare on him and didn't detect any.
Did we have that for comparison with Tanglefoot? Like did you sense nightmare energy from him? Nedry? Can't hear you.
Yeah, we lost your sound, Mark.
Muted.
You're muted.
That would do it.
I am muted.
Mhm.
Oh, has to happen to everybody at least once. When we were in the plane of fire, we had used it to weed out the Tanglefoot equivalent there, and I believe we did actually detect directly from them.
Mhm.
And actually, when we returned back to the temple, we also were able to use it there too.
Mhm.
So I think we do have that baseline for comparison.
Yeah.
Did you check it against the friend of the emperor? Like, did you use detect nightmare?
Oh,
on him?
absolutely.
Yes.
I think I did it during that
I
first
couldn't
interview
remember.
when he was asking questions and Edry was answering the questions and casting the spell at the same time.
I think actually you didn't have that spell yet the first time that you were
maybe not.
interrogated. But you have certainly done it since then, and didn't detect any with him.
In fact, I think I'll try to as soon as I see him again, just to make sure it's still him. I really do need to find a magic item maker to embed that a little bit more carefully,
Yeah.
continuously.
So if the question was where did you last have leave Yobert and Sunia and all of them, it was in Pashan.
So that's probably where we need to eventually go. But I think it's probably pretty important that Yobert put the castle somewhere that he would like for it to be permanently.
Yeah. Just in case.
And yeah, I don't know what the radius of effect on that of these four beings coming into contact with one another. Like, is it, the within? Do they have to be like touching, or can they be like 20 feet apart and they're fine?
I
They're
think
still in
I
this
think
state.
what Curity says is what the healers told me is that the changes that the curse made are made and will not be like that magic has completed. It's not waiting to be undone. It's not being held in place.
So
In the
the way
same
I
way that
thought,
if
yeah.
I used a sword to cut a piece of rope, I could get rid of the sword, but it doesn't put the rope back together.
Oh, see, I thought that you had said that it had not yet been undone. Like the effects hadn't been undone. Like they could be undone. That was the sense that I got.
I don't know any more than what they told me. But what they said is there is no longer an active curse that would stop me from leaving the Feywild. But the changes made to us, there is nothing holding those active, that the change has been completed. It is not at all clear that anything would happen were I
The
to.
spell is
But there's not a complete lack of chance that something might happen.
I don't know. But
Analogy appropriate. Rope cutting, knives, sharp, dangerous. Changes made, completed. But a rope mended. Magic. Magic can change. Or unchange. Rechange.
Be dispelled?
Be dispelled.
well, that's what I'm saying is that there's nothing to dispel.
Be changed.
But also, sometimes when someone or something dies, it could be brought back. So just because the magic is complete doesn't mean that it's permanent.
You need to want it.
Maybe once you're in close proximity with your other half, things will feel different.
Or maybe they won't. We
Yeah.
don't know. Is what we're saying, and we would like to prepare for any eventuality.
Well, I I know that I'm not able to always express this as well as I would like, but I want to be clear that I'm very grateful for what you've done, and simply breaking the curse and ending the Lady Despair's tyranny is more than I could ever ask of anyone. I do not feel that you owe me anything further. You have already done so much.
It isn't a matter of owing. When last we left Yobert and seeing the state that he was in, it's not that he was broken or damaged. It just he seemed to be in pain and very tired a lot. And it's not a matter of owing. It's a matter of wanting to help if I can.
Not just that, but Lord Gilbert has done so much for all of us. And as we've come to care for you, we care for him even more. So if there's some way that we can make this better for both of you, that would be amazing.
And to be clear, we're not suggesting that you need to change. That isn't it. Because you are how you choose to be. It's your choice entirely. So, yeah, like I said, we just want to be prepared for as many eventualities as we could see.
I
But
understand.
change can be changed, and dreams can come true, for better and for worse.
I just okay, the analogy I just thought of is immersion breaking, so I will not get into it.
On a completely, monetary note, I'd just like to point out the longer we delay our arrival back in the material plane, the more we get our 1 gold piece a day from you, Bear.
So
I'm
what do you think? Like, instead of being only
can-
gone a handful of minutes, like a day?
You could arrange for it to have been a whole year.
Yeah, but a
Exactly.
lot can happen in a year. We're trying
Yeah,
to
I would.
fix
Even a
things.
day.
I'm just saying.
Even a
I'm
day, things
just
could happen.
saying. The thought occurred to me. I just wanted to put it out there. Like we're leaving money on the
Well,
table,
Yeah.
but
Also, but
everyone will
there's
be
no.
alive.
You can't spend any money when you're dead.
When when there's no more civilization to buy any food from. Yeah.
Yeah.
Money's
Not only
irrelevant.
that, but I really don't think that it matters.
Not when you want dumplings from a street vendor.
But that's the
Yeah.
thing. If we went to a street vendor and your bear knew that we were going there, he would probably just be like, "Put it on my tab."
Yeah, okay. All right.
Don't take advantage of him.
I'm just saying time kind of elastic. And we haven't made a lot of money, but
He's given us so much
I
money,
know,
like in things. Stop that! You talk about me being a cult leader. Oh my word!
Look,
Yeah, that is one of the kind of the bad things about organized religion. I've always said, like, there's all the tithing. Where's the money go?
I think Vertigo walks up to Zinhorn, looks up.
You need to go to your church.
That was the best.
oh, amen, brother.
It's true. Also, I'll just acknowledge again in the meta that I have not, in a while, I have been a little remiss in giving you all loot. I've been hoping that you'd be content with story-based rewards, but no, gotta have those gold pieces.
There's always the one guy.
I feel like I have so much stuff. I'm like, I couldn't do with anything else that I have to
Yeah.
attune to.
For
I'm
that
good.
matter, you certainly have surplus magic items right now that you're talking about giving a powerful, like a legendary artifact to your sidekick because you're all full up on attunements, but
Yes.
you could probably sell some of those and have lots of coin, but up to you.
All right. I get the message. We'll drop it.
But he's just
No,
a humble man of the
I'm
cloth.
really just teasing. I don't mean to. It is
just
true.
mentally adding up all the
Mechanically,
component
Dungeons and
pieces I
Dragons
have.
assumes that you're getting some amount of, treasure. It's kind of it's balanced that way, but
It's just funny.
yeah.
I wanted to make people laugh. That's what I
Okay, so are we going home?
No, but we'll go
Um,
back.
So where are we gonna go? Like, do we know exactly where we want to go, or should we go back
Well-
to Emerald Arboris?
Straight
No,
we
to
can
well,
actually-
no.
sticky zickies to sell magic items.
There you go.
How about so maybe it might be wise to meet some distance from the city, but I don't think it's as far as Emerald Arboris. And so I don't get homesick a lot, but I have kind of been wanting to pay a visit to an old friend. I haven't seen her in a very long time, it seems like. But it could also be a good opportunity for Sunya to come outside of town and land, and there, in case things blow up, there's nobody around that's going to get hurt.
When has anything blown up?
Except Sunya.
Like literally an entire city block collapsed in on itself. And all we did was visit.
That was the adversary, who will still be out somewhere.
Oh, I'm gonna scry on him as soon as we're in a non-timey-wimey zone. I've got it all worked out.
So it's a pretty small house, though, but we've got the tower. So
Yeah,
We have room
put
and
us on
board.
the table.
so what do we think?
Where is this place?
It's about 2 days north of Pishon.
2 days of what kind?
Well, I mean, it took me 2 days to get from there to Pishon. So
4 days then.
7.
what?
Remember that time we went to the other place and it took us like a month to get there? It was like it's a 2-week journey, and like 6 months later, we
3-hour
A
were
year of
tour.
episodes.
Yes.
yes,
Well, we were being pursued as villains
fugitives.
at the time.
Yeah,
So I was thinking if we went to Siona's, then, we hang out there. The Sunya comes to us, sets down, and nobody gets hurt. Things go boom.
There is a distinct possibility that as soon as Purity and Valor set forth in the material plane, it would enact whatever repercussions you're expecting.
Well, I did think about that. That was why I was like, well, maybe I can send a letter. But then, time is stupid. So this is the best that we got.
I think as soon as you're there, you should travel first. The rest of us will wait a moment. Send a message to land, and then we'll come through.
Well, we would need to wait more than a moment. I mean, if they're over the ocean or something, it might take them a couple of days to get back over land.
Well, they should be in Pishan. And if we're going to time it so, like, hey, put us there, just, a dozen minutes after we left. Then we haven't actually been gone that long, and they'll
So
still
begin
be
the
in
message
Pishan.
with, is the castle sitting down right now?
Because I don't know how the dock works. Like, plus, if, things go one direction, then the castle would just be stuck there. Or maybe the castle would just disappear. I wonder
Lynn,
if that works.
it pains me to say this, and I don't think it generally applies, but sometimes you can't know.
oh my gosh.
I don't feel good.
And I will feel.
Oh my
feel-
goddess.
Put my hand, the back of my hand on his forehead, just like, you sick?
I think Curity is over there with Ivy having a conversation saying, I feel like I've explained more than once that the healers told me that there are no active effects left on the curse. So going over to the prime material plane should not have any effect on any of it. I don't know why we're still talking about this. And Ivy's just kind of just like,
This is just who they are.
Well, I don't want to be
Also-
responsible for a castle falling out of the sky.
We had nightmares about the castle falling
It's
out of the sky or
true.
something.
I
It's
did.
true.
You didn't. You weren't there.
In character, it makes perfect sense. I'm just like in the meta. I'll let you know. I'm not planning to have you get back to the prime material plane and say, "Ha ha! I tricked you. Now everybody's dead."
Sunya is gone.
Yes, I had a
Sunya has
rather
left the chat.
traumatizing nightmare that the castle was literally falling out of the sky. So
I think part of it too is that they weren't supposed to ever be able to be together again. And I think that even though she's allowed to leave the Feywild, there's still some fear on the part of like our characters that
Oh no, no, I
once
get
they're-
that. I'm not trying to question that. I guess I'm just trying to reassure, like any preparations you want to do in character, that's all fine. But I guess I just want to reassure you as players that I'm not trying to trick you into destroying Sunya.
It would provide additional safety if Valor and Curity rode in the tower. Technically, they would be contained away from the material plane. At
Yeah,
least
we
long
can
enough.
do that.
sense.
But
Valor
sometimes
goes way
We
around
can
the
protect our
tower.
pocket.
Sometimes it is necessary to do things and find out what happens.
Yes. I can't believe you just said that.
I'm
You
gaining
sure
a
you're
new
not
appreciation
Yes.
of magic and the world.
You really are different.
I really
But I
am.
think that's a good thing.
I'm not sure.
Different is neither good at or bad. It's just different.
Change
So
can be
scary.
changed. Let's go.
So, yeah,
Bye,
for like
Dennis.
the
It was nice
80th time.
freeing you from evil.
He's on a fainting couch being fed grapes, and he's just like,
This is
"Have a
exactly the
good
image that came to
time."
mind.
Nope.
I'm okay. It's like you plucked that into my head. That was exactly the image of him that I had.
All right, so I think, um, without necessarily belaboring it too much, I mean,
Too late.
well, I just mean the moment itself is that like you are essentially like they have assumed that you were planning to do this, and they've made the arrangements, just waiting for you to tell them when. And so, but like, did you decide specifically where are you wanting them to try to send you?
Well, if we've got the people in the tower in their own little pocket,
Mm-hmm.
they can just stay in there,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll just go back to Sunya.
All right.
I thought you wanted to see your friend.
Well, this is more important. If we need to go there later, because we really will need to catch Yobert up on all of this, so I think we should do that first, and then proceed from there.
Okay.
So, like, we'll have it be as though we left Emirate Arboris, and then a day later we'll end up back at Sunya.
So
That
one
sound
day
right?
passed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
All right. So, I feel like when you're sort of requesting such a specific destination, they're sort of it's kind of like send me where my car is parked.
Oh, that'd be great. Okay,
Um,
so send us to the main teleportation circle in
Yeah,
Pishon.
that certainly works. Yeah, I think that's a magically locked position, so they can absolutely do that. I think probably Vertigo would actually probably remember the sigils for it. I'm just guessing. But so, as you find yourself arriving there on that teleportation circle, almost immediately upon your arrival, Vertigo, you receive a sending. I have the amulet. You got the diamond, so maybe you're not worthless. Wanting to Dinuthere? Then meet me at the temple. Don't tell anyone.
Dun dun dun.
Mhm.
Technically, you can reply if you like.
Was there a specific temple he was referring to? I don't want that to be his reply. Just kind of wondering if that. I want to make sure
Probably
that the
Marushka would be
message
my
is.
guess.
I mean, yeah,
Um,
like he does not say the message you got was what I said.
Okay.
It will take time, and I cannot travel alone. But I will come.
So that happens, and while Vertigo is dealing with that kind of internally, the rest of you are startled by the presence of a large number of guards reacting with wariness to your sudden appearance on the teleportation circle. There seem to be a lot more guards than there had been when you last came through here. And so they like the main one steps up front, is like, identify yourselves.
I'm gonna flash him my friend of the Emperor badge.
You
Just
do
pass
have
them the business card, like
We're
it's
the
like up my
pocket
sleeve. Like,
protectors.
Which
here,
business
have one,
card
have
do
one,
you
have
do?
one,
You,
have
do you
one,
give
have
them
one.
do you
Give
give
them
them the
both.
scare stoppers or the frighteners?
Yeah,
Or,
Well,
you
they're
did
probably
have the token
reversible.
from him, right? Like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought so. So like you show that to them, and they look. They stand down some, but they're kind of looking to each other like they're not sure quite what to do or to say, but they're kind of like whispering to each other.
Hmm.
So can we go?
So I mean, where are you going? Do you need an escort? Obviously,
No,
the city's under lockdown right now.
Oh, wait, what?
I mean, I assumed you were here because you knew.
No,
No.
we just got here. We've been gone for a little while.
They look like they're all kind of looking at each other like, uh, uh, I, the city's under lockdown because the emperor was assassinated.
What?
Bum, bum, bum. That's where we'll end our session for tonight.
Percival Tankers.
Bastard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably the emperor, long past the
And-
emperor's time.
And the last words in that particular notebook are "Emperor was assassinated." So start a new book next week.
Very nice. All right, so I think that's where we will finish for tonight. So thank you everyone for listening and or watching, and we will be back next week for more adventure on so many levels.
So many
Levels.
assassination committees.